Hey, what is up guys? So I did a video on the iPad mini 2 a couple months ago, basically to see if it was worth it, like back in 2016. Well, this year I got my hands on a iPad Air, and let me tell you, this thing is still pretty awesome. Just by feeling it and messing around with it for a couple days, you honestly wouldn't think it came out so long ago. You might have even thought that it came out maybe last year or so. Looking around the body, it still looks pretty up to date, and it's an all metal body, and it feels really nice in the hands. It doesn't have a fingerprint sensor though, but it doesn't really bother me too much. It also has a front and back camera for those days you'd want to take like a 5 megapixel photo on a huge tablet. Speaking about huge, it has a 9.7 inch screen on the front, which still looks pretty sharp. I have nothing really to compare it to, but overall colors looked very sharp, and even though the iPad mini 2 had a sharper screen in my opinion, I would take a bigger screen over a sharper screen any day. Last year we noticed a huge downtrend on people using tablets, and I feel like that has something to do with the software developers not really utilizing or adding any extra features into tablets that maybe our phones don't have. Like, I don't use tablets all the time, but I noticed with the iPad Air, it was pretty much just a blown up version of what I was already doing on my iPhone, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it really adds no new functionality. However, I did notice how much less I used my MacBook. I would type my papers on this thing, I would do my homework on it, I would edit photos and texts. I even wrote the script for this video on it, and I had a pretty enjoyable time doing it. Now, the keyboard on this thing is kind of small, but it definitely is super usable. In my opinion, it's a little bit smaller than the keyboard I have connected to my desktop, but typing on it like I usually do on like a regular keyboard, it works perfectly fine in landscape mode. Obviously in portrait it's a little bit difficult to reach the middle keys, but I guess if you have bigger hands it's doable. And I feel like if I went down in tablet size, the keyboard would have been way less useful. Like back when I had the iPad mini, I could not really use that as a school device, like going to school and typing notes, because my hands are a little bit too big for that. But for the iPad Air, I feel like they're almost perfect. And honestly, that's really all I used it for. Basic tasks like Safari and Google Docs were super useful, considering the fact that I'm super lazy and any opportunity I get to knock it up I will take. But on top of that, I never really noticed any times I said to myself, man, I wish this tablet was faster, or I wish there was more RAM or something. If you're not a heavy user, then I see no reason to not get this tablet. I use a monitor connected to my MacBook whenever I'm at home, like as a desktop setup, and I hated disconnecting the Thunderbolt port every time I wanted to take my MacBook out of my room, but now I just reach for my iPad and I take it around my house or even to school if I need to do so. Basically, if I'm typing a paper or have some light homework, the iPad can't do everything, but it's definitely something cool to keep around. Obviously, running games on this thing was fluid. I didn't really see any dropped frames or anything, but the only thing that sucked was that some games didn't really utilize the bigger screen, so games were literally just a bigger version on the iPad. Now, I don't really use iPads that much, but maybe that's what they're supposed to do, I don't know. Let me know in the comments, but all in all, gaming was maybe like an 8 or 9 out of 10 for me. The battery in this thing is huge. It is a 8,750 milliamp hour battery. I got this thing about a week ago, and since then I've only charged it one time, and that's including all my testing, all the papers that I do, everything that I mentioned in this video, so keep that in mind. I had the iPad mini 2 and I had to charge that every couple days, and I feel like if I really wanted to, I could make this iPad last like 2 weeks on a single charge on my usage. Really, the only downside of this tablet is the 1 GB of RAM. On an iPad especially, you really get to see how often apps force close on the background. It's definitely not a deal breaker for me, but I really do wish it was better at memory management. But hey, if you really need the extra speed and RAM, get the iPad Air 2. It's only going to cost you like a little bit more, but it comes with the extra gig of RAM and a fingerprint sensor. If you want me to do a video on the iPad Air 2, drop a like. If we get like 200 likes on this, I'll definitely do that. Anyways though, that's about it. I would totally say this iPad is still worth it. Even if you're considering a newer iPad, I would definitely say look into this iPad, maybe check the specs out. I'll leave a link in the description for the specs. I know I didn't really talk about them, they just get really boring, and I'm sure you've all seen reviews on the iPads already, so there's really no point in talking about them. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Feel free to add me on all the social networks you see around this box thing right now. I might be doing a giveaway soon. I'll probably announce it on my Twitter, so be sure to follow me on there so you don't miss it. I love all you guys, and hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.